Yes, we're here to celebrate, I think, one of the most important moments in American history today. And I do believe that the Voting Rights Act 1965 is one of the most historic and important pieces of legislation that has passed in this country. There was more done to make real the promise, which it was, of the Emancipation Act and the 13th and 14th Amendments with the Voting Rights Act of 1965 than any piece of legislation before or since. So for that reason, my primary goal here today is to let you know that we are going to dedicate the Connecticut Blue Book this year to the Voting Rights Act of 1965. It is that important. And I think we have to remember that although it has, as Senator Blumenthal said so eloquently, he spelled out exactly what that Voting Rights Act did to control the kinds of legislation that was passed in many of the southern and other states during that period of our history, that literally thousands of state laws have been struck down that were discriminatory in nature up to that point. And since then, it has been used. And it has been renewed in a bipartisan way, year after year. However, I think it's important to recognize that since that time, there have been many efforts to change that law. And I want to just put a finer point on it. I know Senator Blumenthal talked about some of the realities in Washington and in the states on these laws. But I will make it real for you, as it was for me when I was first elected Secretary of State in 2010. I was very excited about it because I've devoted a lot of my career to voter participation. I'm interested in getting more people voting. So I went to my first National Secretaries meeting and encountered secretaries from all the other states. And the first meeting I went to was the Voter Participation Committee. I was very excited that I was a member of that committee. And the first speech that was made at that committee involved a secretary from, I believe it was Kansas, who stood up and talked about the terrible travesty of voter fraud in our country and how we were going to have to do something about controlling the voter IDs in the country. I was so shocked at the time because by now we're used to this kind of attack going on, but at the time I was so shocked that I think I said in a rather loud voice, I thought we were here to encourage voter participation. And people sort of laughed, but it wasn't really very funny. And since that time, many laws have passed in many of these states and been upheld in some cases that seriously restrict rights to vote. There's no other word for it. Now this, to me, makes hollow the victory that was indeed the Voting Rights Act of 1965. And while today is a day to remember the importance of that act, I think it's mostly a day to remember the people that made that happen. And that was those people that marched on the bridge from Selma to Montgomery. Those are the people that fought year after year to get that Voting Rights Act passed. Imagine what that was like on that day, given the history of this country and given the reality on the ground of what was going on with voting. There were so few African Americans voting in some of these states, they almost weren't on the books. And that has changed. But I want you to know that the other thing I want to do today is to recognize that right here in this room, there is someone who was one of those heroes that marched on the bridge, that was there, that I watched on television, but she actually participated at the risk of her life. And the people that did that marching, they knew they were at risk. They knew they could be beaten or even die, and some did. And so for me, we stand on their shoulders. And I'm hopeful that if I'm ever called on, I can be as brave as the Reverend Mary Lee. And I would like to honor her today. I'd like to read this citation from the Office of the Secretary of State. We would like to recognize your heroism in standing up for the voting rights of all Americans and your dedication to public service in your community. You are a true role model of citizenship and continue to inspire all those around you. So on behalf of my office, I thank you for your bravery in the great American struggle for civil rights and your continued commitment to righteousness and justice for all. May you have many years of success ahead of you, and we all look to you for inspiration.
Come on, we can do better than that. Let's give it up. Come on, let's do better than that.
I'm really emotional now, but I would like to thank the Secretary of State for honoring me in this. It's something that's deep to my heart, and she just about said it all, because when we went across that bridge, this is what we went for. And people have the right to vote, whether you vote Republican, Democrat, or whomever, you know, that's what we were marching for. And when I think about, you know, during that time, as the Secretary of State said, not only did I put my life in jeopardy, but my whole family, but it was worth every moment, because now I can vote for who I want to, when I want to, and how I want to.
Amazing story. And thank you again and again for everything you've done. And like I say, I can only hope if I were ever called on that I would have that kind of courage. I want to leave you with one more challenge. None of this matters. None of this matters unless you exercise your right to vote. And not only your right to vote, you've got to get others out there voting.
Amen.
And I always say to people, if you don't vote, you've lost your right to complain about anything. So I know politics is alive and well in Bridgeport, so let's get everybody out there. And I want to applaud the NAACP, by the way, for an effort that you're going to hear about, the Souls to the Polls. That is the core of what this is all about. Thank you very much.